new world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is March 8th, 2013. It's the Friday edition of DTRH. And unfortunately, because MSNBC has kept up their attack on freedom, the Constitution, and pushing Mark Potok in the Southern Poverty Law Center's garbage and propaganda, I have to dedicate another broadcast to spanking like a red-headed stepchild who has put his hand in the cookie jar one too many times after I've said no. More MSNBC repeaters, we'll say, because that's all they are. They have scripts. And apparently Ed Schultz, who I'm going to be taking to the Woodshed tonight, apparently he must have gotten or his broadcast must have gotten a raise because he's got a fancy-dancy new set. So now, and he's got a new way of doing an intro, like he promos everything now, and it's all dramatic, and they've got clips. Just wait. He attacked, again, We Are Change, the Constitution Party. Same people, same exact groups. Mark Potok, Southern Poverty Law Center, breaking out the Southern Poverty Law Center's graph, and oh my God, and it's because Obama's a black guy. We'll get into it. You're going to hear it. I'm going to rip it apart. You're also going to hear another instance of why this type of talk and rhetoric from people like him and Diane Feinstein, obviously neither one of them have any clue as to what they're really talking about. Well, their propaganda, they're pushing this type of fear throughout the mainstream media, and groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center have led to reactions of people like teachers in school, for instance, who are overreacting because a kid chewed his toaster pastry or Pop-Tart, whatever you want to call it, into the shape of a mountain, and the teacher felt it looked like a gun, which it really, you'd have to stretch your imagination, but okay. And he was suspended from school for it. And after I reported on this was I think it was Monday I talked about this. It was Sunday or Monday I talked about this. A couple days later, I heard that school is actually offering grief counseling to the children who were affected by the toaster pastry. I'm not kidding. So when I came up with the toaster pastry terrorist, the school took it even one step further than any sarcasm or snarky remarks I could ever make, and they actually are offering grief counseling to any of the children who are grief-stricken because this young boy chewed his toaster pastry into the shape of a mountain, which they took as the shape of a gun, and then overreacted and completely flipped out and then punished the kid for it. Real good. You overreact to a situation and punish the kid for your overreaction. Well done. That's how the police work, too, by the way. They overreact to a situation, when they bring in SWAT for someone who doesn't want to sign their parking ticket, and they taser the guy or shoot him or whatever. Same thing. Anyway, that kind of mania, that kind of insanity is fed by propaganda and by broadcasts like Ed Schultz's and by Chris Matthews and Lawrence O'Donoghue. I took those two to the Woodshed on Wednesday, along with Mark Potok and two of their MSNBC stooges that they brought on to help bolster their argument. We're going to do the same thing tonight. So, and there's also, I want to play a clip from Diane Feinstein, too. Which you're going to love this one. Okay, this was yesterday. No, wait, what's today? Today's the 8th, right? Yeah, okay, yesterday, the 7th. So it was yesterday on the floor of the Senate. They were having maybe not on the floor, but in one of their little committee rooms or hearing rooms, whatever you call it. Anyway, they were having a debate, gun control and gun crimes and blah, 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 blah. And Feinstein's there, and she was, I don't know if she was being questioned or if this guy was actually testifying, but he's a representative. And, he was talking to her back and forth with facts, and she just starts to spew all sorts of nonsense about how all vets are mentally ill and they shouldn't have access to guns. You'll hear it. And then she says PTSD is a brand new phenomenon, due in part to the Iraq war. I mean, I couldn't make this up. PTSD, which has been known as shell shock throughout the years and other things, you can trace its roots, the origins of it, which I'm going to get into a little bit, back to ancient Greece, the days of Greece. So, are you going to tell me that the invasion of Iraq, even though it was thousands of years after Greece, the nation state of Greece, was founded, you're going to tell me that the Iraq war is the cause for PT? Okay, we're going to get into it. I'm gonna take you to the Woodshed too, Senator Feinstein. Ugh, these people, they just talk, and then they don't even know what they're talking about. And these are the people that make laws, ladies and gentlemen. That's a problem, real problem. So, hour two, I'll get into the another case of gun control mania. Little girl got sent home from school and chastised and searched. And her mother pulled her out of the class for having a paper gun. It was a piece of paper, a square piece of paper with a square little chunk of the corner taken out. So it looked like a Tetris piece. And she got chastised in school for it and searched in front of her fellow classmates. And now her classmates are all walking around calling her murderer and everything else. And her teachers are okay with that. And the school, by the way, stands behind their decision to do what they did to her. We have a zero tolerance policy. In light of Newtown, in light of Newtown, we should have new policies that any more educators or people that are in positions of quote unquote authority, if you start to pull things like this, you should automatically A, be removed from your position of authority, and B, brought up on charges. And I'm sure we can find a litany of things about, how you're violating people's constitutional amendments and everything else, and you should be prosecuted for that. And this is getting out of hand. And people are letting this little girl, you're going to hear her. I want you to hear her. I'm going to actually, I'll give the news credit, at least the newsman, who actually, obviously it was done because if it bleeds, it leads, but you see the little girl crying, and she's like, they call me murderer in school. She brought a piece of paper to school. And these kids are being indoctrinated to call her murderer. Just wait. Just wait. I know people, come on, Popeye, it's not that bad. Oh, it is that bad. I mean, seriously? We've taken a left turn into Insanityville since the Newtown school massacre. And there's a lot of shady stuff with that, by itself. But even if the event, let's detach, like I said back months ago when that happened, we have to detach the event from the response to the event because they're both huge, both have big implications, and it would really require a thorough investigation of each separate phenomena, we'll say. And whether or not let's separate the shooting itself. Let's look at how they responded to it. I mean, things have been twisted and facts have been hidden and different stories have been changed and this and that. And I mean, there's just, in and of itself, even if you get rid of the shady stuff, how about the reaction with the gun control crowd? Okay? So this massacre happens and they take advantage of it, the media, right? And they've been pushing fear. Since that happened, it has been, I mean, it's always fear, but it has been cranked up to fear level 2 or fear level 3. It's really, they've amped it up, and now it's not the fear of Al-Qaeda or terrorists or Osama bin Laden, because, hey, we got bin Laden, so you don't have to worry about him anymore. Now you have to worry about your neighbor next door who has a gun, because he could be a terrorist. Oh, God, you know it's only a month away from, April. And what happened in April? This is what I was talking about on Wednesday. April seems to be that month where things happen. Oh, God, all the terrorists come out. I mean, our government stages terror attacks. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Wake up and welcome to Bizarro World. We're there. I'm going to get to the Ed Schultz audio clip, and you're going to hear him. The reason why I brought up OKC is because that's the first thing Ed Schultz brings up. First of all, it's a 14-minute and 28-second clip. Okay, in the first minute and 28 is his intro and, you know, pontificating and blah 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 blah, blah, you know, grandstanding. So there's only, you know, you have what's left is 13 minutes. So interesting number, but you're about to hear 13 minutes of pure propaganda. Same type of thing as I said on Wednesday. Arguments are going to be completely invalid because it's a straw man argument. You're going to hear appeal to emotion, and you're not hearing the Sandy Hook massacre appeal to emotion. Well, at least not right off the bat anyway. You will hear that mentioned, but the first thing they appeal to is the Oklahoma City bombing. Oh, my God, I remember where I was that day. That's the diatribe he starts to spew. Here, let's listen. I want you to see how he's going to frame the argument. Remember what I said the other day. These are not newscasters. They're repeaters. They're actors. Their job is to come on the airwaves, right? And for the people that actually believe them and think that they're newscasters, they're great guys, their job is to fool them. So the first thing Ed has to do is he's not coming on with any sort of neutral or objective type of journalism. No. He's coming on with a slant. He's already got an agenda that he wants to push. Remember, MSNBC is the propagandist arm of the White House right now. It used to be Fox News when you had the Bushes in. Now you have Obama and his crew in, and they use MSNBC. Okay, so that's probably where Schultz got the money for his new their new studio. Probably came out of your tax dollars somewhere, right? But Schultz's job up there is not to present news. Schultz's job is to come on and present their argument, their agenda, their side of things, their viewpoint, their meaning the White House, the powers that shouldn't be. His job is to be the hype man. And as the hype man, he has to set up the picture for you. He's coming out and he has to frame it. And what's the first thing that they always use? Fear. Fear. They never come at you with any sort of logic or anything and say, look, hey, by the way, what we talk about might be kind of scary, but relax, we'll get through it with some logic and blah, 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 blah. No. They never do that. Instead, they actually come on and try to scare the crap out of you. Oh, my God. You must be afraid. Well, in this instance, it's, I remember where I was when the Oklahoma City bombing happened. Let's listen.
For watching, you know, there are some events that happen in your lifetime, some big news events, and you can remember exactly where you were when that news broke. This is the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City on April 19th, 1995. I'll never forget where I was. We were fishing on Lake Erie, and we came off the lake, and we were staying at this cabin, and I was the last one to go up to the cabin. And everybody was just fixated, because I could see through the windows, the big picture windows there, everybody was just fixated on the television, and I thought to myself,
by the way, before I let it go further, so you understand what else he's doing, he's building rapport with you. See, in order to frame the argument, which he's going to start the frame up next, first he has to build, and that's what this is partially the foundation. This is partially the appeal to emotion, but it's also serving as his buddy thing with you. He's bonding with you. He's sharing a personal experience with you. Now you feel a little more comfortable with the broadcaster. You're no longer looking at him, he's just some dick in a suit. No. Now he's Ed, and look, he's relating a personal experience to you. Wow, I can relate too. I remember where I was on 9/11. I remember where I was on the day the Oklahoma City bombing happened. Actually, in all reality, I can remember. So, I mean, he's not just appealing to older people. He's appealing to people even in their 30s or even in their 20s or anybody that's old enough to even remember the event of 9/11. And then, of course, anybody that might not pick up on those, there's other ways that they'll frame it. But just listen. He's trying to be your buddy. This is classic conditioning programming. Just absolutely disgusting.
Something big has happened. When I got in there and I saw the news, I could not believe that this had happened on American soil. That someone had done this to fellow Americans. And that's why I'm fired up about these facts tonight. Thanks to a new report by the Southern Poverty Law Center, we know that anti-government patriot groups are now at an all-time high in this country.
No, wait. This is the same report that Matthews and Lawrence O'Donnell referenced and that I went over on Wednesday. But you'll hear Ed refer to them as patriot groups and militia groups. Now, he's lumping, and that's because the Southern Poverty Law Center does it, but he's lumping We Are Change in with militia groups. So he's saying We Are Change is a militia group. I don't know if you've ever looked at a We Are Change chapter, but I would say at least 98.9 or 99.9% of them are not equipped in any way, shape, or form to even be 100% of them, I would say, are not equipped in any way, shape, or form to be a quote-unquote militia. But they're being labeled a militia. The Constitution Party, which is actually a political party, and they actually put up a candidate every time for the presidential election. So now you have a real political party being slandered. No real evidence that these people are terrorist groups or anything like that. But the SPLC puts it out there because you hear how Ed Schultz is. What does he say? Well, we now know thanks to the SPLC. Oh, okay, so I could call up my friend Bob Smith and say, hey, Bob, do me a favor. Write me a report saying that Ed Schultz is a pedophile and likes to have sex with goats. And I could come on air and say, ladies and gentlemen, this just in, thanks to Bob Smith down the street, I now know, and his investigative journalism skills, I now know that Ed Schultz likes to have sex with goats and is a pedophile. Well, that's slanderous too. Is it true, Ed? Well, we really may never know, but I would say probably not, right? So how could you then go ahead and turn around and use that same formula with We Are Change or the Constitution Party? And I went a little extreme with what I said about him, ladies and gentlemen, because he's saying extreme things about these groups. He's lumping very peaceful organizations in with, and so is the Southern Poverty Law Center and Mark Potok and their whole crew over there. They're lumping very peaceful organizations in with hate groups. And I even hate that term. Let's scratch that. We'll say he's lumping them in with real. There are bad groups, okay? Not everything. The world isn't all hunky dory. There are bad people. So what they do is they take the names of some bad groups, and then they take all these other groups and they lump all of them in with some of the bad ones. That way, the pool is now tainted, and you're all white supremacists. You all hate black people. You're all racists. You hate Obama because he's black. Blah 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 blah. And now you're all militia. I mean, 2 days ago it was hate group. They're just vicious hate groups. They don't like Obama because he's black. And now the rhetoric is, now they're militia.
You need to pay attention to this, folks. The increase in threats on the President of the United States and other government targets is similar to the period of time before the Oklahoma City bombing. Researchers are out front asking the American government to create an interagency task force to deal with the problem before it's too late. So let's just break down a few numbers here. In 2008,
what does that sound like to you, ladies and gentlemen? Does that sound like a threat? That sounds like a threat to me. That's what that sounded like. That sounded like a veiled threat. Researchers, the Southern Poverty Law Center, are calling on the government to create a task force to deal with the problem before something happens. Oh my God, there's a bad guy out there that might get us. Oh my God, we have to create a task force and round up everybody and kill people. We must. Fear. Oh my God, fear. That's what they're doing. And you hear him? Oh my God, we better do this before something else happens. So what are you going to do? You're going to wait a month and a half, 2 months, and light off, and maybe you'll do it for the anniversary. You guys are going to, maybe you already know because you're an insider, Schultz. Don't put it past any of these media whores, ladies and gentlemen, either, to perhaps have an inkling of something, okay? Never, ever put it past them. But I'm sure he's just reading off a teleprompter, but whoever wrote that line, is that a threat? Are you saying that if we don't give in and tell the FBI and DHS to start rounding up peaceful activists who are doing nothing more than expressing their opinion and their displeasure with the government in accordance with the First Amendment, right? That pesky thing called the Constitution, Ed? I know. You can't stand that thing. But that's the same document that enunciates your right, or enumerates, I guess you could say, because it really can't enunciate, it's not speaking. It enumerates your right to free speech for you, Mr. quote-unquote media, right? You speak with forked tongue, Ed. When we get back, I'm going to take him to the woodshed with the cedar stick. We haven't even begun yet, ladies and gentlemen.
American pie. Just look into the eye and you die like Bill.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are only not even 2 minutes and 54 seconds, not even 3 minutes into this clip, and I've already had to stop it and tear it apart. And wait, there's more. So let's get right back into it. Ed Schultz pushing the SPLC Mark Potok propaganda and their report. Now he's going to say, back in 2008, there were only 149 patriot groups, and now there's 1,360. It's such a huge rise, and it's because Obama's black. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that the country's going south. No. It's got nothing to do with that, right? Not at all. Nothing to do with all the lies, everything else. But remember, a lot of those groups, that number is still inflated because a lot of those groups, they're dragging in groups from all over the place and lumping them together and saying they're patriot groups, they're terrorists, they're hate groups. Well, which is it? I mean, how many different labels can you give one entity? You can only call something so many different things. So what are they? Are they terrorists? Are they patriot groups? Are they militia? Are they activists? Are they hate groups? Well, they're everything, Popeye. They're all of those. Well, okay, I could say the same thing for you guys. I could put all of those same labels on you, the mainstream media. Just by yourself, Ed Schultz. Not even without any of your cronies, your pals, Lawrence O'Donnell and Chris Matthews. I could put the very same labels on you and find a way to attach everything that you and your mainstream media buddies have ever done and pushed. I could do the same thing to you. Oh, you don't like that, do you? No, you don't like it when the shoe's on the other foot. That's why you guys will never debate me live, because I would tear you apart. You'd have to cut my mic off.
Only 149 known militia groups in this country. Last year, there were 1,360, more than 8 times as many. Houston, we got a problem. And as you can see from the Southern Poverty Law Center's chart, The last time we saw this number of armed nationalist groups was in the Clinton years. The Southern Poverty Law Center says it was a similar spike back in 1995, just as we are seeing today. Now, the president of the Southern Poverty Law Center has written a letter to the Department of Homeland Security and the Justice Department recommending two departments combine resources to protect against an act of aggression against the American government. Now, these numbers jumped when President Obama became president. They have now jumped again as he has taken on the National Rifle Association. The NRA has done everything in its power to paint the President of the United States as some threat to gun owners everywhere.
All that first term.
And that's a straw man argument. He's not. I thought the president wasn't taking on the NRA. I thought the president wasn't taking people's guns away. So why are you creating this false paradigm argument? Oh, the president decided to take on the NRA. He decided to take on the NRA. Oh, you mean you're saying politically by pushing for gun control because they're a big lobbying group and they're evil and scary and the NRA is the cause of all death in the world. I see what you're trying to do. I get it. Now, you're building a very sophisticated straw man argument. I see.
Lip service to gun owners is just part of a massive Obama conspiracy to deceive voters and hide his true intentions to destroy the Second Amendment during his second term.
Conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy. Let's forget what the American people want. Oh, it's President Obama. It doesn't stop.
Ed, I hate to break the news to you, but Obama has been nothing but the best salesman for gun companies, which kind of makes me wonder about George Soros owning a lot of those, or having stake in a lot of those companies. I know he owns the Group Service or whatever, or he's got stake in it that owns some of these different firearms companies. But he's been a great salesman for these firearms companies. And I don't want to hear, well, the American people have spoken. No, they haven't, Ed. They haven't. You guys keep silencing the American people because when the American people speak, they say you guys are crazy and you media nutbags are doing nothing but pushing propaganda and scaring the crap out of everybody and pushing fear. The people that agree with you are the people that you've scared the crap out of. And Obama is pushing an agenda. Of course, it's not his agenda. See, that's part of the straw man argument too there, Ed, and you know that, don't you? You have to. If you don't, then maybe you've been drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much. You should tone down on the fluoride a bit. This isn't Obama's agenda, just like it wasn't Bush's agenda. They're just puppet masters. This is a much larger agenda of a world government. I know. When I say world government, I must be Timothy McVeigh, right? And I must, oh my God, only militia and terrorists talk about world government. Crazy conspiracy theorists. Really? Quote, we shall have world government whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent, end quote. Statement by Council on Foreign Relations member James Warburg to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on February 17th, 1950. Let me say the quote one more time from, again, James Warburg. Go look up who he is if you're not sure. He's a banker, obviously, but go do a little research on the guy. Member of the Council on Foreign Relations, quote, we shall have world government, whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent, end quote. So I guess he was a crazy right-wing militia member too, right? Even though he was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. But I'll bet you if that was thrown in your face on TV, you and your crafty crew would try to come up with some sort of idiotic piece on, well, Warburg wasn't a big deal or blah, 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 because you would play on the stupidity that you think the listeners have. And there are some people that are still in that ignorant state and in that state of retardation. But there's more and more people getting out of that state of retardation and speeding back up and starting to come back in the line. I just ran into some lady randomly today at the store before I came on air, a couple hours before I came on air. And very nice lady. And I was talking to my wife about all the crap in the food and how even soy lecithin, which people think is so great, is not. And if you actually go do some research, you'll see why it's not good. But I was like, see, even this crap is in the food. And I was like, you can't escape any of this stuff. And the lady was about 15 feet from me, and she turned around, and she was like, you're right. She's like, they're putting stuff in the air, the vaccines, the water. It's just utterly disgusting. They want to kill us. And I was like, yep, And I gave her a business card to federaljack.com. And I told her, go here. You might find some more solutions and stuff there. And she was very grateful. She was very awake. So Ed, you think that your listeners are stupid, but they're not. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, that ought to piss you off that they think you're so dumb that you can't see through their crap.
For the NRA, the rhetoric of the conservative media has turned dangerously alarming.
The Obama administration...
Wait a minute. The rhetoric of the conservative media has turned dangerously alarming? ... Silent hesitation. Really, Ed?
Through all this appeasement and apologizing, answers to the Quran first and to the Constitution second.
Barack Obama is destroying America based on lies.
You don't like Obamacare. You feel that it's unconstitutional, bad for the country, and on and on.
Going to destroy us.
Okay, going to destroy the country.
Gonna destroy us. Getting 30 million more people health care is gonna destroy us. Most of the militia groups named by the Southern Poverty Law Center claim that they are not hate groups and they are only exercising their constitutional rights. But all it takes is one person to create another Oklahoma City situation.
Oh, I see. So now you actually just defeated your own argument. You won't say it, but you actually just defeated it when you said that they say they're not hate groups, as I said. And you say, but you see, it only takes one person. So what you're saying is We Are Change may not be a terrorist organization, but a supposed terrorist could try to infiltrate it. Therefore, they should have their freedom of speech taken away, and they should be sequestered and put in cages and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying? Because some bad guy might do something? Well, gee, Ed, thunderstorms might roll in on Thursday and ruin my plans to go play soccer. I mean, you never know. What if? Just like my drill instructor said to me in boot camp. What if my sister had a dick? She'd be my brother. Enough with the what ifs. That's not real journalism, pal.
Take James Cummings. Before Cummings was killed in a domestic violence altercation in 2008, he was preparing an attack on newly elected President Obama with what? A dirty bomb. The Center for Disease Control says Cummings is the first American to come close to assembling the elements of a fully radioactive dirty bomb. In a 2010 Time magazine.
First of all, I hate to tell you this, but I don't trust the CDC on anything they say. Again, Ed, your sources that you keep quoting as God and as gospel, okay, and as if the universe, the universal force, whatever it is that created all of us, right, and everything, it manifested itself into a finger and etched into, or a hammer and chisel and etched into stone certain things. Come on, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not, again, 5 minutes, 25 seconds. We're not even 6 minutes through this. We're not even halfway through this yet. And I've had to stop multiple times and show you. He is throwing out all the stops. His show must have gotten the top amount of money because his show used to be horrible. It was the worst production quality on MSNBC. All of a sudden, little Ed's got a new studio and he's putting together big pieces like this. I can tell you he's not doing it. He's probably got a crew of, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 people, maybe even 20 people working on it. So somebody had to give him his show a pay boost for this garbage. The rise of militias. We Are Change is not a militia. The Constitution Party is not a militia. I would say probably 80% of the groups on that list aren't militias. I mean, even more than that, because some of those groups, although they might be, even some of the bad ones, although they might be bad groups, you can't classify them as a militia. But it's word magic. They choose a word, and they say, we're going to create a label out of it, and we're going to use that label repeatedly over and over and over again, and they do by their mainstream puppets, and they have them repeat this, blah, 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 until it becomes pop culture-ish in people's heads, and they walk around and they say stupid things. That's why that little girl, you'll hear the clip later, the little girl gets, the kids are calling her murderer. Well, where'd they get that idea from? I wonder. From all the gun control crap on television, because guns kill people, and if you have a gun, you must be a murderer. Well, I guess that means the military and police are murderers. Oh, but it's different in that situation. It doesn't make sense. Argument invalid.
Magazine cover, the story about extreme militias. Well, Cummings' wife is quoted as saying his intentions were to construct a dirty bomb and take it to Washington to kill President Obama. He was planning to hide it in the undercarriage of our motorhome. She says her husband had practiced crossing checkpoints with dangerous materials aboard, taking her and her daughter along for an image of innocence. This is really a frightening reality of extremism in America. The latest report from the Southern...
All right, so it's one bad guy, Ed. How many millions of people live in the United States? He's focusing on one guy and going, see, we have to take away your rights because of one person. How many people live in the United States? Over 300 million. So what are the statistics? What are the numbers on that? I'm not a great mathematician, but I know that whatever the odds are there that you would run into this person have got to be, drastic and not in the favor of running into the person. I would say on the other end of not running into them. I mean, this is just ridiculous, dude. It's already known and been proven by statistics. Ed, statistics, those things you guys love to quote all the time. Statistics. Well, it's been proven by statistics that you have a better chance of being killed by a police officer than any sort of terrorism here in the United States. How do you answer that? Oh, you won't. You'll just keep pushing this crap. An explosion of hate. That's what his special is titled. And it's this little, they took a picture of the SPLC graph and they made it like this little, floaty widget in the corner. I forget what you'd call what the professional term for it is, but it's floating down in the left corner and it's got these big dramatic letters in black and it says, an explosion of hate. Dun, 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 dun. Remember, it's that time of the year. SPLC's coming out. Next month is the anniversary of OKC and a bunch of other stuff. And remember, that is the month that they like to do all this stuff behind the scenes. There's a lot of occult connections here and there, but you have him framing the argument, right? You have to be careful. People like guns, or anybody who likes guns and hates the government is obviously got to be Timothy McVeigh, and there's going to be another Oklahoma City. And I also see a veiled threat in there. Like, if you don't do this, then they'll pull something off so that they can create a task force for homegrown terrorism. Just like Bill Clinton ran around saying that it was the militias and all these other people and labeling all these other groups as being connected to the Oklahoma City bombing after the Oklahoma City bombing, and it wasn't true. Yeah. I could go on and on and on, but I want to finish ripping this clip apart, so I'll get back to the audio. It's just, look, it's obviously they're not only using the, remember, it's a month away, so they're using the build-up to the anniversary and the fear of it, right? Oh, my God, to scare people. But it makes one wonder if they would pull something off, because I know it was an Obama aide, I can't remember who exactly it was, but it was in 2012, mentioned something like, he could use an Oklahoma City bombing because Clinton had really, horrible ratings and as a president, and the Oklahoma City bombing happened, and all of a sudden it brought everybody together, and maybe Barack Obama could use the same type of event. And here you have them laying the groundwork, trying to scare the crap out of the public beforehand.
Poverty Law Center shows just how dangerous it is and how we cannot let this go unchecked. We need to pay attention to this report. I know I am. Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question: does the government need to pay more attention to the militia movement? Text A for yes, text B for no to 67622. You can always go to our blog at Ed.
And don't worry, standard fee supply plus now they probably have your number stored in some database.
.msnbc.com and leave a comment there. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. Quite the discussion on this topic tonight. I am joined by Daryl Johnson. He is a former senior analyst for domestic terrorism at the Department of Homeland Security and author of Right-Wing Resurgence. Also with us tonight, Richard Cohen, president of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And also on board tonight is Dr. James Peterson, director of Africana Studies and associate professor of English at Lehigh University. Gentlemen, great to have you with us tonight. Mr. Cohen, you first. What kind of reaction have you received from this report now that it's been out by your organization, the Southern Poverty Law Center?
Well, I think there's a lot of concern, of course, about the numbers that we were talking about, the increase in the number of these conspiracy-minded anti-government groups, the increase in the number of right-wing plots, a lot of...
You see, conspiracy-minded groups. I have news for you. Again, you guys are misusing the term conspiracy, and you're doing it on purpose because it's a term that is used every day in a court of law. You guys have used it reporting on things. I mean, for Christ's sake, what did the federal government charge James Earl Ray with in order to extradite him back to the United States? They charged him as being part of a conspiracy to kill Martin Luther King. Oh, I know. That's crazy talk. Go look it up. It's a charge that's used to this very day. To this very day. Again, if I go with Bob Smith and we decide we're going ahead of time, we're going to go rob a 7-Eleven and we go in and we rob it, well, one of the charges we're going to get against us when we go to court is conspiracy to commit robbery. So stop misusing the word. This is the president of the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's not like he doesn't know this. He knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing his job. His job is to come out and scare not only the public, but his job is to scare the policemen. His job is to scare the police that if you say the C word, conspiracy, you want to kill cops. You must be one of those crazy guys. Oh, my God, are you one of those sovereigns? Oh, my God. That's what they're doing.
Talk about it, a lot of concern, but we haven't yet heard from Secretary Napolitano or General Holder. And I think it's really, really very important for them to take this seriously and to...
Attorney General Holder, not General Holder. He's not in the military. That man does not wear a uniform. He does not have any medals, and he is certainly not fitting to wear any sort of uniform whatsoever. And that comes from a veteran. Don't call him General Holder. He's Attorney General, and that man's such a scumbag and a traitor and a criminal, he doesn't even deserve to have that title.
Increase the number of resources that they're devoting to this growing problem.
So you see a real parallel before Oklahoma City and right now, moving up as far as the rhetoric, the number of groups, and the activity that's out there.
Absolutely, Ed. And 6 months before the Oklahoma City bombing, we sent a letter to Attorney General Reno saying that we were really very, very concerned. And, we feel that same kind of concern now. And I want to...
Isn't that convenient? 6 months from now would be September, within a few days of September 11th. Very interesting. So are you saying that if they don't do something within the next 6 months, you guys are going to stage an attack? I mean, people can see how the ADL and the SPLC are shady groups, to say the least, and have connections to the Oklahoma City bombing. I think one of the best films you could watch on the subject is A Noble Lie. Go watch it, A Noble Lie. I've had Holland and James Lane on. Just the movie totally... It blows, it refutes all of this garbage. You'll see it completely destroys this because it shows you how it was, at the very least, perpetrated by the government. Well, you could say allowed to happen, if not perpetrated by them. But the evidence is there. You can only come to one conclusion after you watch the film, and then you go research it for yourself. And these guys are building a straw man argument based on appeal to emotion and, oh my God, fear, 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 Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma City, 9/11, Newtown, fear, 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 guns, murder, 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 fear, Oklahoma City, Timothy McVeigh, fertilizer, easily purchased firearms, gun control, now, police state. That's all I heard so far. It's 7 minutes and 50 seconds. That's all I've heard, okay? It's like listening to Charlie Brown's teacher with those words thrown in there. Wonk, 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 police state. Wonk, 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 gun control. Wonk, 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 lies, lies, lies. Wonk, 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 propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. Wonk, 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 wonk. That's what I hear. It's all crap. There is not one valid argument yet. Not one. We're halfway through it. And there's not one valid, even a valid point. Not one. It's all pure lies. Total and complete garbage. You need to see this for what it is. And it's not that hard, actually, to see it for what it is, especially once you start paying attention. It's actually quite easy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, top of the hour break coming up. Man, hour one just flew right by. Stay tuned for hour number two. I'll be picking it up right where we're leaving off with this piece of propaganda. I'm going to finish tearing this apart, and I'm going to get into the other two things I talked about. So don't go anywhere.
Either we heal as a team, or we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals. Ideas are bulletproof.
Welcome back to hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. It is March 8th, 2013. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. And for those new listeners out there, that is my old intro. The beginning of my broadcast when you hear the intro with Morpheus and John F. Kennedy. That is my second intro. My first intro was actually verbatim what you just heard. And during the break, I was sitting listening to the clip that I had been going over. And I had been, mulling over if I'm going to play the whole thing or not, because I have other stuff I want to get into, and other audio I want to play for you guys, and a few other things I want to comment on. And I am going to play a little bit more of this clip from Ed Schultz. But I've already pretty much taken him to the woodshed in hour 1. And we constantly, and when I say we, I mean this alternative genre, whatever, the non-mainstream media, all the broadcasters out there, a lot of us talk about these negative energies, people, whatever, things. And a lot of times it's constant negativity. And I don't like to do that, you know that. And I always leave the broadcast on a positive note, which I will. But I wanted to bring it back in hour number 2 with that intro. And I might even, I've been kind of wanting to change up the second hour intro. I might even bring back my old intro for hour 2. But I wanted to play that because it's important that people hear the audio. Sometimes people need to hear things like that. They need a pep speech. They need to be, they need someone to stand up and rally the troops, as it were, Patton-esque. And all too often we focus on negative stuff, and we don't have maybe enough time, or we don't focus enough time, because there's so much negative stuff out there. And everybody at this network does at least one broadcast where there's solutions and there is positive energy. And I'm not saying anybody's negative, and there's many people out there that do put out positive energy. But I decided that, at least on my broadcast, I don't want to constantly put out negative, horrible things. So I've been trying to put out some positive stuff too, and I felt that it was important that people hear the message in the words that were spoken. And it happens to be one of my favorite speeches. Yes, I did edit it a bit to put it together for time and to make it more directed to the point with what we're facing. But it's very inspirational, and I hope it gives people courage. I hope it inspires people, whatever. That's the whole point of it. So getting back into it, I'm only going to give you a few more minutes to this thing, and I'll tear it apart. I might actually even be able to get through the whole thing. I don't know. But the second segment of hour 2, I'm going to cover Diane Feinstein and her insanity about PTSD. And then I'm going to cover, if hopefully I have enough time, which I should, another example of gun control mania and why this type of garbage and propaganda and fear should not be pumped out through the news media. And again, how these people are not the news media, because if they were really doing any type of journalism, they wouldn't be pumping fear out. They'd be giving you realistic information, but with logic, not put out there to scare the crap out of you. But that's not what they're there for.
Point out one thing. You gave the number, almost 1,400 of these anti-government groups. Those figures were collected before the Newtown massacre and before all of this right-wing craziness over, proposed gun control laws now. And so I think that we're likely to see a further spike in these numbers.
Sure. Mr. Johnson, you wrote the 2009 analysis for the Department of Homeland Security about right-wing extremism. It was heavily criticized by conservatives everywhere.
How come there's never any talk of the left-wing extremists, as if there's no extremists, as if there's only extremists on the right and that the left doesn't have that? There's extremists anywhere you look, okay? There are people that will take things to the extreme in any situation, any way, shape, or form, no matter what label you want to put on it. How come you guys refuse to talk about that? How come when Potok was on the other day and Matthews was on, those two didn't believe it? Oh, no, I don't believe that the left-wing the extreme left is as bad as the extreme right. No, it's the right-wing conspiracy nuts, anybody that's a conspiracy person. But what about the supposed 9/11 truthers? I thought they were supposedly left-wing crazies. Well, that's different, but blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. So it's different unless it's the same until it's different again. Like we're at war until we're at peace, until we're at war again until we're at peace, right?
You were repudiated by the DHS under pressure and left the agency. Has that experience colored your opinion at all when you hear reports like this come out?
Well, what's colored my opinion is the fact that the Department of Homeland Security has not changed since I left. Despite this huge spike in the number of anti-government groups, they still only have one analyst looking at domestic non-Islamic extremism. I find that just quite startling and unsettling to me.
What should be done about it?
Well, I think the SPLC has taken an important step in recommending an interagency task force, but there's other things that can be done. We have a whole
You hear what they're doing, right? You understand what they're doing right now? They're framing this argument so that when the people see this doesn't go on TV so that these guys can just have this random conversation. This is put out there to form your opinion. And what they're doing is they're framing it that Homeland Security either doesn't have the resources because of money or they're just not doing it. So they should have more resources available to them in order to have more people to track everybody and look out for these supposed homeland terrorists. So it's like a fund drive. Listen, They're literally, it's, oh my God, Homeland Security needs this. There's not enough, you know. And then what does Schultz do? He says to this guy, so what's the answer? You tell me then. What's the answer, sir? Now, this is the guy that wrote the Homegrown Extreme report in 2009, the MIAC report. This is the author. And you hear him saying, now Schultz is going to him, you know, please tell me what's your solutions to the problem. And now you're going to hear his solutions, including an interagency task force to deal with the problem. To deal with the problem. You mean like rounding people up and putting them in FEMA camps, like the supposed conspiracy theorists that you make fun of and say that, like Potok was saying, oh, they say we want to round them up and put them in FEMA camps, ha ha ha. And now you have Schultz coming on the next day, a couple days later, saying we need a task force to deal with these people before something happens. Well, what does dealing with them entail? I would say rounding them up. Well, if there's 1,300, almost 1,400 militia groups, I'm sure there's going to be a couple thousand people at least, right? So where do you house all those people? Most jails are at full capacity. So do you have some private jail sitting waiting for them that you're trying to fill with, and maybe that's why you're doing it? Excuse me. Maybe that's why you're doing it? Or is it because perhaps maybe the kooky conspiracy theorists talking about FEMA camps are correct? How about that? Oh, no, that can't be a possibility, could it? No. But the rhetoric went from hate groups to and labeling groups like We Are Change and the Constitution Party to now 2 days later everybody's militia and they're going to take over the government and blah, 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 blah. Disgusting. It's propaganda, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I'll try to get through the rest. There's only like 3 minutes. Let's see if I can get through the rest. I don't think I'll be able to, though, because I'm going to have to keep stopping. It's such blatant crap.
Generation of analysts and law enforcement officers who've just been coming up through the ranks that have no idea of what they're dealing with because they weren't on the job back in the 1990s. So I'd encourage training. We need to have commitment on the state of federal, state, and local law enforcement to long-term undercover investigations looking into these groups.
Well, Mr. Johnson...
And the best part is while they're talking in the background, you hear the gunfire and this dramatic music. They say they show you a video clip of these guys running around in BDU style pants. Not everybody's in camis. Some people have just like olive drab on or the desert tan. But it's all tactical pants and shirts. You could tell it was at least purchased by Gauls, if not something newer like Black Hawk or whatever the new company of the day is, Under Armour, whoever. But they show this random video of guys running around shooting guns at targets and covering each other and running in and leapfrogging from one spot to one spot, covering each other like you would like an infantry unit would advancing. And they don't tell you who these people are, though. They're just, militias and blah, blah. And they show this random video of people running around. Well, who the hell did you just show the video of? Were they militia? Because you're acting like the guys you see on TV are the very same people you're talking about. But they didn't put up a little information bar on who the hell that was in the video. Of course they're not going to do that. It's not done to be real journalism. This is an entire piece pre-planned and put together to formulate opinions about gun control and scary terrorist groups and scary people that have conspiracy theories.
How do you know what to take serious and what is a joke? I mean, where do you draw the line? And can analysts...
Well, I don't take you serious, and you're a joke, Ed. Does that answer your question?
Actually get to a point where they say, we really need to watch this group, they are going to be trouble?
Yeah, that's one of the difficult aspects of the job. I think one of the things you can look at is the different types of movements we have present here in the United States and look at their histories. Do they have a history of violence? Are they making current calls for violence? Are they making threatening language towards either minority groups or towards government officials? These are types of things that analysts and officers should be looking at.
James Peterson, can we ignore the fact that these groups have increased the intensity under an African-American president?
Absolutely not. I mean, that's an important factor in this whole discussion.
Of course, he doesn't ask this guy 10 minutes, 19 seconds through the whole clip, right? And his guest came on, I don't know, a little bit less than halfway through, but we'll say this guy's been on for at least 4.5, 5 minutes. Dr. James Peterson of Lehigh University, and he has yet to ask him any questions. What's the first question he asks him? Is a race-based question, trying to play the race card, frame it up, oh my God, it's because he's black, trying to create racial division. I'll give you one guess why he asked Dr. James Peterson that question. It's not because he's a doctor, not because he's from Lehigh University. It's because Dr. James Peterson's black. So he has him on the broadcast, doesn't ask him any other questions all the way through the broadcast until the race-based question. The question trying to race bait, trying to foment fighting and supposed, oh my God, hatred of Obama. And yes, there are people that don't like him because he's black, okay? There are people like that. But where does a lot of that come from? Again, where does racism come from? Who really are the real racists here? Again, you have a black guy on your broadcast, and the only question you ask him with having him on for 5 minutes, you have him on for about 5 minutes, and the only question that you ask him, or at least the first question you ask him anyway, and you go to him on, is not about anything else that you've asked any of the other guests. Nope. It's to frame a race bait argument. Who's the real racist, Ed? You, your producers, and the rest of the scumbags at MSNBC. That's who.
Discussion. We've seen other studies that have tracked the rise of racial animus over the course of Mr. Obama's presidency. And Ed, you've done a lot of work on this show to try to talk about the kind of language that we see coming from the right, sometimes from political leaders around socialism and some of the racialized language. The reason why we want to be cautious and sensible about that kind of language is because it stokes the flames of the sort of radical right-wing groups that are interested in training and preparing for warfare. Now, listen, these groups have the right to do that, but at the end of the day, our government and citizens have to be very, very vigilant about the own extremism that exists in our society.
What would trigger, you think, Mr. Johnson? What would
again? Now they're showing the same video again, and they're not. I don't see up in the top now. Up in the top in the corner now, there's a little bar. It says tacticalresponse.com, but I don't know. That doesn't tell me who these guys are that are running through the woods here shooting. And they're not dressed up as supposed militia members. Is it I'll have to go look into it, but I mean, is tacticalresponse.com, maybe that's something for the listeners to do right now. I mean, could it be maybe a place that teaches people how to shoot and how to shoot tactically and work with others tactically, perhaps like a infantry unit, perhaps, maybe like a small squad, like a 4-man fire team, perhaps? That's militia training. If it's a company that's doing it, maybe, perhaps. I mean, I don't know who these guys are, and you're just playing their videos, acting like they're militias, and that those people in the video that you see are training to kill everybody, and they hate black people. That's pretty slanderous, and if I were the people at tacticalresponse.com, I'd be pretty pissed off. I'd be pretty pissed off, Ed.
Trigger a group to do something.
Well, we're looking at an issue that I hope wasn't going to come to fruition during this next administration. That's the issue of gun control. Yep. This is a very inflammatory issue for these types of groups who've been arming themselves. And actually, they've had conspiracy theories that have perpetuated on the internet for the past, 4 or 5 years, talking about this very fact that there might be a gun ban.
So the conspiracy theories, the quote-unquote conspiracy theories, there's that label again, the conspiracy theories about gun bans are only about 5 years old now. Well, isn't that convenient? How long has President Obama been in office? Oh, a little over 4 years. Oh, well, it must have been because a black guy was running, and if the black guy runs, he's going to take away guns, right? So it's racist. You guys realize that martial law plans go back way, way further than 5 years ago. And people exposing said plans goes back way further than 5 years ago. Look, if you're what do they call them? Analyst. Sorry, brain not functioning properly tonight. If you're an analyst, right, Mr. Daryl Johnson, if you're an analyst and you used to work for Homeland Security, shouldn't you know some of these basic facts that you guys are just completely skewering? And so, I mean, if that's the case, are you lying? Are you purposely lying? if you're purposely lying, who's paying you to purposely lie? If you're not lying and you really believe this stuff, then you're a crappy analyst and you shouldn't have your job to begin with. Maybe you should change your profession. Maybe you should be a line cook or something. You see my point?
And so when we have these types of events like the Newtown Massacre that brings up these issues, they always had the potential.
There it is again, Newtown.
Potential to agitate these groups further.
Yeah, Mr. Cohen, in your letter, you brought up the example of this man who posted a rant on YouTube about firearms. Here it is.
Now, what he does is, now I know what he's going to do. He plays this clip from this guy, and I can't remember the guy's name. He was flipping out about gun control and everything, and he went on air, and he made him rant, and he said he was going to start shooting people, okay? And there was more to it, but they cut out just that little piece where he says, I'm going to start shooting people. And now, they don't tell you what happened to the guy. As soon as the guy posted the video online, somebody reported it, and the Department of Homeland Security in his state ended up taking away his permit to carry, and I don't know if they confiscated his guns or not. I don't remember the full story, but I mean, they took his concealed weapons permit away from him and everything else. So the guy already faced backlash from the authorities that are already in power with the powers they already have, and yet they're not going to tell you that. Listen, how, you know what? I'll wait till the other side of the break because the break's going to come up. I'll wait till the other side of the break to play it, but you'll see. They played just the one segment. In fact, I'm going to try to find the guy's name out during the break because I want to give you the full story on it, and then we'll move on to the other two things I want to get into. But there's only about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left, so I'll finish it off. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in a few minutes. Don't buy into this crap. All you hear is, again, wonk, wonk, wonk. Fear, 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 fear. Sandy Hook. Fear, 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 fear. Oklahoma City. Look through it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Final segment of tonight's Friday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. And don't worry, live broadcasting still continues till 3 a.m. here. Sound of Freedom, my buddy Ryan Brooks. So just stay tuned after I'm off. Go get some coffee. Probably going to need it if you're on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, probably not. But go get some coffee, whatever your drink of choice is, whatever you want, and sit back, put your feet up, and tune in for another 3 hours because Ryan's going to rock your world as he always does with the Sound of Freedom. So make sure you tune in. Ryan's a smart kid, and he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's a veteran, and he's not afraid to tell you his opinion. And honestly, I like how he does his broadcast because he brings a lot of activists and people that are local activism from Washington State. I mean, he covers a lot of world stuff. He covers everything in the U.S., but he also brings on local people from his area. I listen to his broadcast after I'm off air, and I've actually some of the local activists, people he's brought on, if they've written articles, I've actually posted them up on federaljack.com after hearing them discuss it and stuff with him. So tune into his broadcast. Anyway, I want to get back into this, and during the break, because I want to get into Diane Feinstein, but I want to tell you what I know why I remember, because I said, tacticalresponse.com, who are they? Well, it makes sense why he was playing the video in the background now, because the video of the guy that he plays, but he doesn't tell you. So he leads you to believe it's crazy people, but he doesn't tell you, he doesn't explain why you see those guys running around. As I said, Tactical Response is a training company that they do tactical training. They teach military, they teach police. So, or that's what their website and their business claims that they do. And I mean, you see the videos of them training, and for all intents and purposes, that's, I guess, what they do, right? As I said. So they play these videos, but they don't tell you that the guy in the video is the same guy, the same person that owns the company from the video you see playing in the background. So it's oogity boogity scary guys running around with guns the whole time. And then they go to the CEO, whose name is James Yeager, and he was pissed off. And I'm actually going to play two audio clips really quick for you, and then I'll get into Diane Feinstein. But I want to make sure I give the guy a fair shake, because they don't tell you any of the ramifications. They make it sound like this guy can have a gun and he's running around just crazy person. So first I'm going to play the clip from them so you can hear the clip he plays, and then I'm going to play the clip from James himself, who it was fouled up, and I'll tell you what happened to him. So here's this clip first.
I am not letting my country be ruled by a dictator. I'm not letting anybody take my guns. If it goes 1 inch further, I'm going to start killing people.
Are guys like this taken seriously as threats, or is this all talk? Mr. Cohen, what do you think?
You never know, but, who...
Okay, now, they don't tell you, is guys like this, they don't tell you that he's the owner of the company from the video they were playing, right? But they just play that little snippet. And the video wasn't that long. It was only like a little over a minute long. But they only play that little snippet, okay? And look, if there were tyrants, if there was a tyrannical government coming to drag your family off to a prison camp and kill and rape your kids and your wife, wouldn't you shoot them? Or would you just stand there and watch your wife get raped? If you'd stand there and watch your wife get raped, then you're a punk. And I got no respect for you. I think you already know how I feel about that. But anyway, they don't tell you the full story. So Tennessee yanked this guy's concealed weapons permit the next day, okay? And he went on the local news and he tried doing damage control for what he said. Look, the guy, okay, what he said was stupid. If he uploaded it to YouTube, and he shouldn't have said it. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you shouldn't have uploaded it to YouTube. Being the owner of a company, he should have thought a little more. He was emotional, but I can understand why he's emotional, and I can concur with his statements that if somebody was going to try to come steal and all my stuff and rape and pillage my family and everything else, yeah, you're not going to let you do that. Who would? The founding fathers didn't let the British do that. And the guy's emotional. He's pissed off. Was he in the wrong for maybe putting it up on YouTube and going off like that? Yeah, okay, I can see that. But he was pissed off. So they only play you this small clip, okay? But how about the aftermath? Well, I'm going to play you, it's only a minute. It's what happened afterwards. It's James himself speaking. I want to at least give him a fair shake, and then I want to school Diane Feinstein.
Hey everybody, James Yeager with Tactical Response, and today I'm here with my friend, alumnus and attorney, Dana McClendon. In my other video, I said some pretty volatile stuff, which I apologize for. I do not in any way advocate the overthrowing of the United States government, nor do I condone any violent actions towards any elected officials. I was very angry when I made that video, and I didn't have time to reflect on it before it was put up, and I took it down very quickly, but it was reposted with my original thoughts. I was mad when I said it. I apologize for letting my anger get the better of me, but I want to make sure everybody understands that it's not time for that. It is not time for any type of violent action.
Oh, but I don't see you playing that. And it doesn't matter if he was doing it sitting next to an attorney. It doesn't matter what the motivation behind. I mean, obviously the guy, if he was serious about going out and just killing people and he was psychotic and crazy, he wouldn't be worried about going and dealing with this properly, would he? No. He wouldn't be worried about the ramifications to his company. No. Should he have thought about that beforehand? Yes, but you just heard him admit that. Okay? Doesn't matter if it took the lawyer to sit him down and say, hey, you need to make an apology video. At least he made an apology video, right? So if the guy's really hell-bent on killing and, oh my God, destruction and terrorism in Adam Lanza, Newtown, rah. If he was really hell-bent on that type of behavior and that type of action, wouldn't it have already happened because he got in trouble, right? They took his concealed carry license away. So you think that would have driven him over the edge, right? Obviously, he was pissed off at the time. We've all been there. We've all been pissed off at the time. So, lesson learned. It's a teachable moment, as they would say. For those of you out there contemplating being pissed off and doing a video rant against the government, I'm going to go shoot people. I wouldn't recommend doing that. That's very stupid to begin with. Maybe this could be your teachable moment not to do that. Now, we've only got we got a little over, we got about 13 minutes left, but I want to get through this clip. It's about 4.5 minutes, and I'm going to let it play up to where Feinstein talks, and then I'm going to school her a bit about PTSD. Wait till you hear the comment she makes about PTSD. Remember I said earlier that she makes a comment that PTSD it's a new thing from the Iraq War. You're going to hear her say it. So it's not just some radio show host his hyperbole, he's doing it for ratings. No, you're going to hear Senator Feinstein say it herself.
I want to draw my colleagues' attention to Senator Feinstein's the exception in her legislation for a gun ban for certain classes of Americans, namely to retired law enforcement officers.
And this is yesterday, and they're debating gun control, and how she's saying, well, former law enforcement can have AR-15s. So this representative is saying, well, I would like to know how come perhaps veterans should be exempt too. Anybody that served in the military and they were honorably discharged, and they're obviously not felons or whatever, just like you'd have to do the same thing with a police officer. They should be able to, be exempt from this ban too. They have, proper training and blah, blah, blah. And Feinstein's like, oh, no. And that's when she brings up PTSD.
I think any exception to the ban is a remarkable concession by the authors and co-sponsors of the bill. That's because bill sponsors have long declared that so-called assault weapons are purely offensive in nature, as in designed for killing. Hence the name assault weapon. But in fact, I believe this exception concedes that there are at least some Americans who should be allowed to possess these weapons for purposes of defending themselves, their families, and their communities. So I would ask my colleagues, why should this exception be limited only to retired law enforcement officers? Is it because we believe they have some special competency and training to use these weapons to defend themselves and others? Or is it because we think they and their families are worthy of special protection? I want to be clear. I think every law-abiding American has the right to choose how best to defend themselves and their families. That's why I strongly oppose this legislation. I wholeheartedly...
By the way, all that noise, that chattering you hear in the background, that's Diane Feinstein and her staff having a conversation amongst themselves, moving papers around, and she's having, I guess, get him stuff so she can respond, having her staff get her stuff so she can respond to this guy. But she's not even listening. They're chatting. That's the kind of respect that they have for one another or your rights. They don't even sit and listen to each other during a debate.
I agree with the authors and the sponsors of this legislation that the weapons this bill would ban can and are used lawfully for self and family defense. So the purpose of the amendments, and I have a number of them that I will offer, is to highlight the dangers of a blanket ban and illustrate why we shouldn't prevent law-abiding citizens from owning self-defense weapons. If you don't believe that the guns banned by this bill can be used lawfully for self-defense, then you should be offering an amendment to strike the exception for retired law enforcement. But of course, I don't expect that. This amendment, Mr. Chairman, would allow members of the armed forces and veterans to obtain and possess the self-defense weapons prohibited by this legislation. Members and veterans of the armed forces are the most highly trained and qualified individuals to own these weapons for self-defense purposes. We should think long and hard before disarming these heroes, preventing them from protecting their families and their communities.
Senator Feinstein?
If I understand this, this adds an exemption of retired military. As I understand our bill, no issue has arose in this regard during the 10 years the expired ban was in effect. And what we did in the other bill was exempt possession by the United States or a department or agency of the United States. So that included active military. The problem with expanding this is that, with the advent of PTSD, which I think is a new phenomenon as a product of the Iraq War, it's not clear how the seller or transfer of a firearm covered by this bill would verify that an individual was a member or a veteran, and that there was no impairment of that individual with respect to having a weapon like this. So you know, I would be happy to sit down with you again and see if we could work something out. But I think we have to, if you're going to do this, find a way that veterans who are incapacitated for one reason or another mentally don't have access to this kind of weapon.
Could I just respond briefly that PTSD sufferers are already prohibited by law? And I think it's a mistake to paint so broadly as to say any active duty military or veterans can't use these kinds of weapons or any other lawful weapons for self-defense. And certainly I wouldn't want to suggest that we think people who've served in the military all suffer from some debilitating illness that would prohibit them from being able to defend it.
You see? No, I mean, at least he was defending them, but you see what I was talking about, what she said about PTSD? It's a new phenomenon. It's a relatively new phenomenon stemming from the Iraq War. Really, Senator Feinstein? PTSD is not new. It's been around, as I said earlier, since at least ancient Greece. Hippocrates described it as grief, linking a traumatic loss to subsequent symptoms. It was known as hysteria during the 17th and 19th centuries. In the 1800s, Dr. Erickson connected railway workers' multiple accidents, injuries, and deaths to subsequent symptoms, calling it railway spine. Sigmund Freud initially thought neurosis originated from trauma, calling it traumatic neurosis. Freud's theory was applied to World War I veterans as a conflict between fear and duty, calling it flight into illness or shell shock. World War II veterans' trauma was called battle fatigue and combat exhaustion. And after World War II, it was described in the Diagnostic and what is it called? Statistical Manual of Mental... the DSM. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM, as gross stress reaction after the Vietnam War and the inclusion of a trauma-related syndrome in the next DSM was publicly and professionally advocated. And finally, in 1980, the DSM-3 published the condition as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. There are about 7.5 million, 3.5% of adults who are dealing with PTSD in the United States alone. Now, this information was, you can go look all this stuff up for yourself, but you just go do a little bit of research on PTSD. It's out there, ladies and gentlemen. It's not like this, I got this from some secret book or some secret pamphlet that only secret societies have some sort of access to. Yeah, it is the DSM. That's they just actually, I think they just re-released they might have, I don't know if they re-released the newest one. I have to go see. I thought they did. And they added a whole bunch of new mental disorders. Remember, another mental disorder that could probably bar you from owning a gun would be oppositional defiant disorder, against the government. Oh, he's against the government. He's going to kill people. He can't have a gun. He's a crazy conspiracy theorist. People, this is... do I need to explain any more about, why these people don't need to be making laws? Really? Feinstein doesn't know that, at the very least, PTSD... Now, I just read you pretty much where the history of it, at least it dates back to ancient Greece, right? In a nutshell, I kind of combined it and read you a nutshell version of it. But as I said, 1980, the DSM-3, the condition was finally labeled post-traumatic stress disorder. She just said PTSD is a relatively new phenomenon relating to the Iraq War from 2003. Senator Feinstein, I'd hate to break the news to you, but you're about 20 years late on your idea of when PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder was first the label and term came about. And by the way, when that little final snippet at the bottom, it says there are about 7.7 million, 3.5% of adults who are dealing with PTSD. You do realize that rape victims experience PTSD. Car accident victims experience PTSD. Somebody who, you could be in the room and you could watch your friend have a heart attack or something in front of you and die, or a relative. That would cause PTSD. And there's no level. So people understand there's no level. There's no chart you can go by that goes, well, this event should cause it and this shouldn't. War causes it, but this doesn't. Car accidents don't cause it, but this does. No, everybody's different. It depends on the individual. So this whole labeling, the use of labeling, see, first they get the labels, and then after the labels are created, and they get people to understand that this label means this label means that. Now laws can be made because of those scary labels. Oh, my God. Feinstein doesn't even understand anything about PTSD. She doesn't get it. She doesn't even know how old the diagnosis or the label of PTSD, that it originates going back to 1980. Diane, you're at least 20 years off, dear. Okay? Hate to tell you. Maybe you need to go look at a calendar. 1980, not 2013. Not 2003. I mean, people, she's a senator. She's going on TV. You have her going on CNN, being put up there like she knows all. She's Senator Diane Feinstein. She wants to save the children. And yet you have 1980, DSM-3 published the condition as post-traumatic stress disorder. And you just heard her say that it's a new disorder from the Iraq War. She just made herself irrelevant. She should be removed. She's incompetent. She has no idea what she's talking about. Yet she's in charge of all these commissions to take away people's gun rights, and veterans shouldn't have guns. Popeye, you're jaded because you're a veteran. No, I don't have PTSD. So it's not like I'm jaded on that level or anything like that. I just don't think anybody's gun rights should be violated. I don't think anybody's freedom should be violated. Anyone's rights. Not special rights for this person or that person. I think everybody's rights are important. Feinstein, you just proved yourself to be irrelevant, and you should be removed from office because, ladies and gentlemen, if she doesn't know the basics of this, first of all, her staff should be fired because, I mean, she just, again, thank you, C-SPAN. They hate C-SPAN, the powers that shouldn't be. They absolutely hate it. Not that the people that run it are awake or trying to get things out. Maybe someone here or there might be. But they just don't like the fact that that stuff gets aired. They don't even want you to know about it. They do not want you to know, period. 2003, the Iraq War. PTSD dates from the Iraq War. And considering the Iraq War started in 2003, I guess that would be the far end of the spectrum, right? One side, 2003. So I wonder if we could ask her what year she thinks PTSD started. Like, when do you think this new phenomenon started? It never happened before, huh, Senator Feinstein? This woman should not be making decisions whatsoever. And ladies and gentlemen, the rest of them are like that too. More than half of them think the way she does. Your staffers suck, Senator Feinstein. They should all be fired. And you should be removed from office. You are irrelevant, and you've proven yourself to be. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. Ed Schultz taken to the woodshed. MSNBC taken to the woodshed. SPLC taken to the woodshed. Senator Diane Feinstein taken to the woodshed. Go look up that last story. I didn't get a chance to tell you about. A little girl got frisked at school for having a piece of paper missing a corner. Go look it up. Unbelievable. I'll see you all again on Sunday. I love you all. I'm out of here.